Hey, what's up, guys? So, Todd Bowles was interviewed by NFL Network at the Scouting Combine today. And if you missed it, there were some interesting tidbits there. Nothing absolutely crazy, but if you can go out and find the interview, I think it's worth a watch. Either way, one of the things that I found interesting that I wanted to just kind of talk about was when he was asked about Kyle Trask, which was obviously a hot button topic for the interview and just the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and their entire offseason in general, right? One quarterback on the roster, under contract currently, and it's Kyle Trask. So all indications are the Buccaneers are moving forward with Trask. One of the things that Todd Bowles very clearly enunciated was that the Buccaneers are not going to be spending big on a quarterback this offseason. They're not going to be spending, I think the quote was $60 million on somebody who may not be worth $60 million, which felt like a stab at like Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers and things like that. And I don't necessarily know if he had anyone in particular in mind or if he was just kind of generalizing the statement to let us know as Bucs fans, don't expect anything like that. Not happening. So that leads me to believe that they're going to be looking at three different potential options. Number one, Kyle Trask as the starter. Cheap. They believe in him. He's there. 2 years in the building, working hard. Kyle Trask. Option two, Kyle Trask versus a veteran free agent. Could be a guy like Jimmy G. Could be a guy like Gardner Minshew. Could be a guy like Jacoby Brissett. Ryan Tannehill. The tier of class of quarterbacks that's below the initial tier. And then even the tier beneath that, because I think the initial tier is like Aaron Rodgers and maybe if Lamar Jackson were to hit the market in some capacity. And then Derek Carr would be the tier beneath that, I believe. The tier right underneath that is, I think, the tier that would interest the Bucs the most, because that would give the Buccaneers an opportunity to have somebody come in and compete with Kyle Trask. A situation where if they brought in Jimmy Garoppolo, it's not just assumed that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the starter, and it's also not just assumed that Trask is going to be the starter. They both have somewhat of an equal opportunity to go for the job. If they brought in somebody like Derek Carr, there's no chance that Kyle Trask gets the opportunity to start. It's Carr's job, until further notice. So I think that would be option two. Option three, I think this is the least likely option of the options, but option three, I would say that I took from it is the potential of drafting a quarterback should one fall. I don't think the Buccaneers are going to trade up for a quarterback at all, but I think if one falls all the way to them in the draft, that they have a high grade on. It has some odd slippage, and they just keep dropping. Yeah, I think there's a chance that if they really like him, they might pull the trigger. I think that's the least likely of the scenarios, but I don't necessarily think that it's impossible either. I got the feeling that they kind of want to roll with Trask. One of the things that bothered me, though, just upset me. And, Todd Bowles has a tendency of doing this. I don't dislike Todd Bowles, but man, does the man upset me sometimes. He said, I really like Kyle Trask. I like his work ethic. I like the guy that he is. Talked about how he stays late when the cameras are off and no one's around. He's behind the scenes working. I love it. That's great news. Work ethic is very important in any profession. So I'd love to hear that he's got work ethic. He said, the one thing I need is I got to see it. He said, I got to see it. The work ethic is great, but I need to see it. He said, I just think he needs reps. And I watched it and I said, Todd, aren't you the head coach? And you were the head coach last year. You could have given him reps. That's on you to not have the foresight to understand that you were going to be in this position at some point where Tom was going to leave, and you were going to have to pay cap money elsewhere and be, I don't want to say stuck with Trask, but be forced into a position where you have to look at a cheaper option at quarterback, and Trask would be there being the best potential option in the scenario. You should have had the foresight for this and known ahead of time, let's get a look at the guy. And if you're thinking, well, maybe we didn't have a chance to, but we did. And Todd, you gave Blaine Gabbert an inexplicable amount of playing time against the Atlanta Falcons the last week of the season last year. Way too much playing time for Blaine Gabbert. It could have went Tom Brady, Blaine Gabbert for one drive. Kyle Trask could have got the whole second half. Instead, you gave Kyle Trask such a minuscule amount of playing time. Of course you couldn't evaluate him. Right? In the preseason, we continually see, Bucs fans, how often do we see Blaine Gabbert playing deep into these games in the preseason? And it's like, why? We don't need to evaluate Blaine Gabbert. You need to evaluate your quarterback of the future. So Todd Bowles telling me that he loves the traits, thinks Kyle Trask, he said he's smart, works hard, likes the person that he is, just needs to see him on the field, just needs to get him those reps. I'm like, Todd, that was well within your power. You could have done that. Last year, you had opportunities. It was the rare moment where you actually had an opportunity with the division wrapped up, nothing on the line. You could have gotten him actual reps. It could have been done. You could have left some starters in and let Trask play around on a real NFL field against real NFL competition in a real NFL game, and you chose to let Blaine Gabbert take more. I can't. That one quote really just, can you tell? It set me off a little bit because I'm like, Todd, you were in control of that fully. And the preseason, these are things you were in control of, and Kyle Trask, whether he is or isn't the future, whether he is or isn't the answer, doesn't excuse having lack of a plan or lack of foresight that you need a plan. I mean, it's obvious, or it was obvious to myself and others, that you needed the opportunity to see what is Trask going to be about. Get him on the field as much as you can. It's rare with Tom Brady as your starting quarterback. He's durable. He's always playing. He takes every rep. It's rare you're going to get the opportunity to let the backup play. You had that opportunity and you let it pass you by. And now you're sitting there saying, well, I just need to see him on the field. Well, you're the one who didn't put him on the field, Todd. So, interesting interview. There were other things said too that, maybe we'll jump into at another point. But that was just one quote that I was just like, Todd, just think about it before you say it, come on. More to come. Stay tuned. Click the subscribe button.